And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL Network.
And off we go. Welcome into Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. Hopefully you're having a good Saturday night. As always, produced by Jake Noecker and with my co-host Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. We've also got Xander Zayas coming up later on in the show, and Jim Rodriguez is going to join us, J-Rod, to talk a little bit of boxing. Speaking of boxing, Dustin Poirier, one of the best boxers in the UFC, although didn't necessarily show his best boxing last Saturday night against Islam. It's not the easiest thing to do. He did hang around, though, BT, in that fight. It took Islam until the fifth to eventually sub Poirier. Before we get into what's next for both guys, your thoughts on Islam retaining his belt last Saturday night?
Man, Islam's a dog. I'm just really, really impressed with the guy. You know, I think that I'm guilty of it. I think, some pundits have been guilty of it that, this guy may not live up to Khabib, and maybe he won't. But I think that the interesting thing is, Khabib maybe never being in the challenges that this guy has, one of the cool things about being a champion is being able to dig down when things are difficult. And I do think you saw that at times in that fight where, man, he really couldn't keep Dustin down. And I thought there were times where Dustin was sunk and Dustin was still able to, sneak out the back door and, still hit him with some pretty vicious shots. And he just always had an answer.
When he had him on the ground and he had him in that crab, I was like, dude, Poirier at some point is going to just have to tap.
Yeah, and so for Islam, like he just finds a way, man. He just finds a way. That ankle pick to get into the choke was so damn impressive. He's a great champion. Islam is a great champion. I don't know if he's ever gonna pass the legacy of his mentor, but he's not in boring fights. This guy is fun. He will take the bloody shots. He will strike a little bit. He will find other ways to go and get wins. So I came away with the fight super impressed with Islam. We're always impressed with the heart of Dustin Poirier. I really thought when he got back up in the fifth round, I thought that, he's going to get it done. And that's really what I think sold me on Islam, because I thought that Dustin was going to be able to walk him down and maybe hit him with one of those things that would change the fight. And nope. But Islam had the answer for it. So came away with it. Very impressed with the lightweight champion of the world. He is he's one of the best, if not the best, doing it right now. And Dustin, it's unfortunate he doesn't get the storybook ending, but I think we come away with it just still. He didn't punk out there in the first round. He kept coming and kept trying to find a way to get back onto his feet to strike and give himself a chance. So, what can you say about him? It just continues to add to his entertaining fight legacy too.
Can you imagine being the pound for pound number one fighter in the world and just retaining your UFC belt? And people say, yeah, but he's still maybe not Khabib. What a jerk you are, BT. But you're right. That's the first thing that always is going to come up in his career. He might end up being a top 5 or 6 fighter of all time. And a lot of people are going to always compare him to Khabib. And to your point about Dustin, tough as they come, I actually thought for a second there, like in the third round, when he kind of started getting a little vocal and pumping his chest out, that Dustin was going to knock him out for a minute there, like real time. I was like,
Me too.
You kind of got that feeling. It was a dominant fight by Islam, but man, Dustin had a couple of moments there.
Yeah, I thought it was. I wouldn't say it was a dominant performance by Islam. I thought it was a pretty competitive fight because, when it was on the feet, like you always felt like Dustin was going to have a chance to inflict some real damage. He really cut Islam in some pretty nasty spots. So I never felt like Dustin was out of the fight, but we all know how dangerous he is. That one punch from him can change the course of a match. So for Islam to really always have those answers, to be close to some submissions and things like that, there's a lot of pride in that for Islam to be able to always have an answer for Dustin Poirier. So thought it was a great back and forth between them. I thought it was a really entertaining match. And, just for Dustin, unfortunate that he doesn't, get his last crack probably at the belt, but I think it just continues to show that people are always going to be entertained by his fights.
Let's start with Dustin because he's addicted to fighting and he didn't just lay down the gloves and retire afterwards. I agree with you. It's probably his last chance at fighting for a belt. He's got a lot of other endeavors. He's got his kid. He's got his health as of right now. He talked about he's got enough money. I think there's a pretty good chance that might be it for Dustin Poirier. I don't think he really cares about the pomp and circumstance, really patting him on the back. Right, I don't think this is going to be like the Kobe Bryant retirement tour where he goes around, everybody knows that he's done, right? I think there's a good chance that's it for Dustin Poirier.
I'm skeptical of it just because Dustin Poirier spent a lot of his career looked upon as kind of like the guy who was overlooked in the lightweight division. You know, it was always Eddie Alvarez, the guy from Bellator, won the championship. Gaethje, you know, the guy coming over from World Series of Fighting, you know, and he's the guy who was always kind of beating. He's the guy who lost to Conor McGregor. It just took such a journey for him to get to this point that for him now where he's getting really good paydays and he's main eventing, I feel like there's going to be something that lures him out there. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know if it's a fourth against Conor. I don't know if it's a Max Holloway rematch. There's not really anything new, I think, out there for him because I think most of the big fights probably will be rematches unless it's, you know, him versus Colby have some bad blood. I really have no interest in that. You know, I don't think that's going to be a really great fight. And I'm honestly a little down on Colby, but yeah, for me right now, I think he's going to be out for a while. I don't think we see him for probably at least 9 months, maybe a year. But something will be calling. Something I think will call him that he'll get a big fat payday on because you only get so many of those as a fighter, and he got a little bit later probably to his biggest earnings. So I don't think he's going to retire, but if he does, legacy is absolutely golden. I think he's beloved by the fans. You know, he did. I'll never. You know, I remember talking to Masvidal about this because they're very close. They trained for a long time, and you know, people can put the interim title label on him, but I remember Masvidal saying, he goes, yeah, but he beat Max Holloway when Max Holloway was like at the peak of his powers. Yeah, it was up a weight class, but you beat Max Holloway for gold on the line. Like, that's as good as winning a championship. So I don't know. I think for me, he's done it all in the sport. If he does call it a career, great for him. But something tells me something will call him back. He loves fighting. Who doesn't love money? He's not washed. Why not?
His resume is as good as any fighter that's ever fought anybody. I mean, he's like you said, he's fought everybody, and he's never had an easy fight. You talk about Max, you talk about McGregor a few different times. He's fought the who's who. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL Network. He couldn't beat Islam though. So who gets the next crack at Islam? What do you think? Which fight makes the most sense next for Makhachev?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that, you know, Sarukian is the interesting one because, you know, they have the past and, you know, I think people thought that Arman really held his own in that matchup and, you know, he was 22 at the time. So I think there's a fun story there. Certainly. And I think that one probably makes the most sense for him. You know, Gaethje's obviously coming off the vicious knockout loss. That doesn't make a ton of sense right now. So yeah, I think probably Sarukian's the one that makes the most sense.
Unless the McGregor fight happens, and we'll get into that later on the show against Chandler, and then McGregor calls out Islam and says, I should have beat that rat Khabib, and then they have to have that fight because Conor gets to make his own fight. So that's the one that I've got my fingers crossed, but I don't. We'll see what happened. There's a lot of news coming down the pipeline as we speak about the McGregor and Chandler fight. Obviously, earlier this week, the press conference in Dublin was canceled. As we roll along here on the BetQL Network, recapping last week's UFC 302, Sean Strickland, you called this one. You said this is going to be the easiest bet on the card. Took out Paulo Costa. One of the scorecards said otherwise. Absolute insanity. How do you describe the way that Sean Strickland fights? Because after watching him, I mean, he just stands so straight up, so many kicks, hard to get hit, doesn't really knock people out. Great fighter at this point. I'm willing to say it, not just a good fighter on a good run. He's a great fighter. He deserves a shot at a belt again. But man, how do you describe the way that guy? It's different from anybody else.
Yeah, it's not that entertaining. A lot of the times, I don't think, and I think even he said it was a boring fight. He apologized for it. I didn't think it was, but I just thought it was a mismatch. I don't fault him for not like putting pedal to the metal on it, because he had the win beat, and I think he knows that with a win, he's going to be right there for the winner of Izzy versus DDP. I mean, the DDP fight was razor
that shot, right?
Definitely. Oh yeah, it's not even a question. So
Right.
I don't fault him for not going, full throttle trying to get a knockout. He's not a knockout artist. He's not. He wins most of his fights by decision. He's very hard to hit. He's very good at hitting his opponent. That's why I thought it was a pretty easy fight to pick. I don't know where Paulo Costa goes from here, because he feels like he's taking on all the top dudes. So I don't know if it's a jump up to 205. I don't know.
Stinks. Get him out.
Don't say he stinks. That's not nice.
He's 1-5 in his last 6 fights. It's almost
not a good record.
That a couple of years ago he was fighting for a belt. Like I've watched a lot of Paulo Costa, and it feels like in training he's really good. Inside the octagon, he's really average, dude. He beat me up, but not a lot of UFC fighters in his weight class. I'm just saying. I calls it like I sees it. Also, we saw Kevin Holland win by sub, and Jailton Almeida won by sub also. That was nasty too. Which fighter, I should say, impressed you more last Saturday night? Was it the Almeida sub or Kevin Holland?
I hit them both, so I'm happy with both of them. I would say probably Holland, because it looked like he was about to rip that dude's arm off and take it like a pit bull on a pork chop. That was really gross. Almeida, I think, did what he had to do. He had to look really, really impressive, and he did. So I think, the next time he won't get bumped down to the undercard and gets himself back in position. I think he called out Cyril Gane afterwards. That's a fun fight. I'm into that. Him versus Cyril Gane.
Remember when Luke Rockhold got into the fight against it was Paulo Costa, and the blood kind of creeped you out, and it was like, that's weird. This guy hosts a fighting show and you didn't like the blood. I can't stand when a guy gets into a deep armbar or Kimura. I can't watch. I don't know about you, but if a guy's arm is about to snap, like you talked about in the Kevin Holland fight, I got to turn. Are you man enough to keep your eyes on that? You watch that directly?
Yeah, I mean, I watch my 8-year-old son do it every, Friday and Saturday, so I'm good with it. I'm kind of used to it now, to be honest with you. I'm like, show some flexibility.
Snapping arms.
Show some flexibility. You can get out of it.
Watch out for the young Tobin here in a few years. All right, we got fights tonight inside the octagon. Main event: Nasruddin Imavov, the favorite, -120 against friend of the show, the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier at +105. I assume we're playing the Gorilla tonight as an underdog.
Oh, 100%, dude. It's funny. He had a great, I don't want to call it a rant, but he had some great points about how everybody is giving Sean Strickland his flowers. And mind you, he beat Sean Strickland not too long ago. I mean, it was December of 22. And, he's like, everybody's out here saying, oh, it was a bad decision. He goes, the realness of that is I had him on the back foot. You could see everybody against him. Sean has everybody backing up, not against me, that he was, I think his quote was dealing with semis on the highway. I love Killer Gorilla, dude. I love it. For his age to be as, durable as he is, he's 40 years old now, doesn't look a beat over, 34. Like, he still looks like he's in his prime. I think he's dangerous. I think he's game. I think that he can get back into it. And Imavov, close fight last time. He lost to Sean Strickland. Not to MMA method, but yeah, you're giving me Killer Gorilla as a dog. I'm going to take him tonight, and I'll take him by knockout. I think he gets it done.
By knockout. I'm on that one also. I like the odds, too. Remember when I asked Jared Cannonier how much he would have to make to get into knockout with an actual gorilla? And he was like, damn, them things got some sharp claws. I don't think he was interested in that fight. Real quick, who you got in the Dustin Jacoby versus Dominic Reyes fight? Reyes 2-1 underdog also.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to go with Dustin Jacoby. I think that they got this one right. Reyes just, is just not the guy that he used to be. So I'm going to go with Jacoby to get it done tonight. I'll say he gets it done by decision. And then the other one that I like tonight, just since we're early on it, because they're probably going to get to this one soon. Miguel Baeza, my boy from Davie, he needs one bad. He's lost 3 in a row. I thought this guy was going to be something in the welterweight division against Puno Soriano. So I'm going to go with Baeza tonight by sub.
Raul Rosas Jr. on this card, also against Ricky Tersois. Rosas Jr., you got to pay a heavy fee now, -225 for the young buck. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking a little fighting and make a little money with you this Saturday night right here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
And welcome back into Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network with BT, Brendan Tobin, just me, the sports machine, Sean Levine. And is that the Demolo doorbell that I hear? Is that my boy J-Rod? Jim Rodriguez joining us, host of ProBox TV and The Better Side. And you can hear him here all over the BetQL Network. J-Rod, good to have you back on, my brother. We haven't spoke since the Usyk-Fury matchup. What was your biggest surprise? What's your biggest takeaway from that fight? Are you more surprised that Fury got knocked all around the ring? Or are you more surprised that we now have an undisputed heavyweight champion and it's Usyk?
Yeah, first of all, always good seeing you guys. Always good talking to everybody here on Tapped Out. Listen, there's an old adage, right, that says the bigger guy always wins in any fight, right? And I had a nice bet. Like the prop I had was that Fury was going to get knocked down in the fight because he gets knocked down in every fight. But it did not surprise me that Usyk won and became undisputed heavyweight champion. It did strike me as surprising as how quickly that fight turned around because Fury dominated the first half of that fight. And then it almost feels like in typical Tyson Fury fashion, almost like you would see in a movie, he kind of took his foot off the gas, started playing around a little bit, started juking and jiving. And Usyk is just a machine, man. I don't know if it's the Eastern mentality, the discipline, being from the Ukraine, that you just don't mess with guys like that. And he just systematically broke him down and won that fight. And listen, I think Usyk won the fight. I don't think there was any controversy there. Might have been a draw. You could have looked at it as a draw, stuff like that. Sets up the second fight beautifully, but it didn't surprise me that Usyk won because the guy, if he told me it's raining outside, I would go get an umbrella.
Do you feel, Jim, at all like we're heading towards this new era in the heavyweight division? I don't really know who's going to take over, but we see what happens to Deontay Wilder last week, and him and Fury, it leaned Fury, but those guys were in some hellacious fights, man, over the three in the trilogy, and maybe they're just worn down from that. Like, do you feel like their eras of greatness are over?
Yeah, well, for Deontay, unfortunately, I think his time has passed. I mean, I think those three fights with Tyson Fury, he left every bit of himself in that ring. And even the Saudis, Uncle Turkey was telling him, listen, I need you to throw punches. I need you to be bomb squad. And he just couldn't do it. And you just feel like there's no more bullets in the gun for Deontay Wilder. I think we have a new generation of heavies coming up, with Daniel Dubois, Zile Zhang, Joseph Parker, who aren't exactly young guys, but it's a new generation of guys. And the thing that blew my mind, and we talked about it on ProBox TV, guys, is that Usyk is all of a sudden saying he wants to go back down to cruiser. You're like, why would you do that? It's like, you win the NBA championship and I'm now going to go play in the Euro League. No disrespect there, but it's like, why would you go back down to cruiser? I just don't think there's anybody there he wants to fight at heavy, and he wants a new challenge. So it's a new day in the heavyweight division, but you just got to wonder if these guys are those sexy names, even though it's a sexy division.
Do you feel like is the idea there maybe to link up with Canelo? Like Canelo's kind of flirted with going up, but now it didn't go well for him at Bivol. But if they were going to do a super fight, Crawford, he doesn't seem that keen on fighting Benavidez. Like a no-lose real situation for him would be to go up and fight Usyk. Like, do you think that that's maybe on Usyk's mind at all? If he could lure Canelo to a doable division?
That's wild. I actually hadn't heard that. I know Canelo has gone through his channels and said he's not interested in fighting Bud Crawford. Listen, I'm all for chaos. I'm all for making these crazy super fights, and I think Turki Al-Rashid has done an amazing job of getting boxing fans and combat sports fans what they want to see. But there are weight divisions for a reason. And I think, all of a sudden, Bud going from, listen, we saw Charlo fight Canelo, and that was 2 weights. Can you 3 weights, and now Canelo is going to go up to heavy? I don't know. I think there is. It's not a video game at the end of the day. These are human beings, and there is walking around stuff. I don't know. I think Usyk just I think maybe he saw what happened to Fury. He saw what happened to Wilder. Maybe he doesn't want to leave a piece of himself at the heavyweight division, wants to go back down to cruiser, maybe unify that thing again and then ride into the sunset. But Canelo's an interesting – I don't know what Canelo wants. Do you know what Canelo wants? I mean, doesn't want to fight Benavidez. Doesn't want to fight Bud Crawford. Who does he want to fight? Who are you fighting? Exactly. He didn't want to fight William Skull. What are you doing?
And the interesting thing for me, Jim, is like he also is like he's very big on, well, what do I get out of this? Like, what is, Crawford, I'm not going to get any credit. Benavidez, everyone's going to say, oh, too bad. Like, so I feel like this is the only situation. Like, unless he's going to do Bivol again, I think that's a bad idea. So you go and you do something crazy. That one makes sense to me if he wants to do it. I would love to see that. I mean, Crawford or Benavidez are the top for me, obviously, and I think for any boxing fan. But if you're going to do something wacky, that's out of there.
BT, why would he not get credit for the Crawford fight if he beat him? I mean, and he would take
according to him,
pound.
He's just saying that he says if he beats Crawford, which I think Crawford's a big challenge for him because he's always had trouble with guys with boxing skill. I think it's just a matter of he says, according to Canelo, it's like, oh, they're going to say if I beat him that he was too small.
How do you think that fight would go down, J-Rod? If we see it like soon, because I don't want it to be a Pacquiao-Mayweather thing where we see it when both guys are already in wheelchairs with walkers.
Listen, I had Tim Bradley tell me that he thinks Bud wins that fight. Usyk went on a podcast and said he thinks Crawford wins that fight. I think Canelo wins the fight. I think Bud makes it competitive just because of his savviness and the way he's in there. But Canelo, at the end of the day, whether you like him or not, dude is a brick wall. It's hard to break him down. You know what I mean? I think he lost to Bivol because I don't think he properly trained for Bivol, and he ran out of gas, literally ran out of gas. There was a hot mic in the corner where he told Eddie Reynoso, I don't got anything left, and he sort of just survived the last couple of rounds. So I think a proper training camp, I don't know. I love Bud, and I love Canelo. So I don't know. That'd be tough. It's like picking between your kids. But the one thing that got me really interested, and this is where we go back to Turki Al-Rashid is the 5 versus 5 was a super success, right? With Matchroom in Queensberry, and now De La Hoya wants to do a 5 versus 5 with Golden Boy and Top Rank. There's a rumor that Turki Al-Rashid wants to do a 5 versus 5, but USA versus Mexico. Now, to me, can you imagine you did that in Vegas at Alliance Stadium? La Raza would be out. I mean, Canelo Crawford, Munguia against Caleb Plant. That would be an amazing. I would put my hand in my pocket for that one. That would be an amazing, but you'd have to do it in Vegas. And I think the August 3rd fight that's coming up in LA between Crawford and Madrimov, and we're going to see Andy Cruz and we're going to see Andy Ruiz. Hopefully we see Virgil Ortiz. There's a rumor he's going to be back in there. That's going to be a big test because it's going to be the first fight that Turkey does outside of Saudi. Because I don't know, when you watch those Saudi fights, guys, do you feel, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of watching the NBA finals during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, it's basketball. It's LeBron. It's Jimmy Butler. It's the finals. But that's what it feels like when I watch those fights from Saudi. So I think going to LA, going to Wembley in September, I think that's going to be huge for the Turkey experiment in boxing.
Coming up next week, J-Rod, we got a big pay-per-view, nice little doubleheader. Gervonta Davis, Frank Martin, intriguing fight. Frank Martin is really, really talented. Might be a little bit too quick for this. Gervonta is playing those head games. I was at the press conference to launch that. What do you think? Do you think Frank Martin's got any chance in this matchup? He's a 5-1 dog basically going into this against Tank. What do you make of this matchup?
It's curious because remember, Tank hasn't fought since that massive pay-per-view against Ryan Garcia. We've almost forgotten about him. It's been over a year since he's been in the ring. I think at the end of the day, this may be, first of all, Frank Martin's a southpaw. He's the biggest southpaw. He's probably the most talented southpaw that Tank Davis has ever seen. And what makes Tank frustrating, as I guess as a sports investor, is that he's not afraid to fall behind. He's not afraid to lose, to be down 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, and then boom, fight's over and he wins. Kind of reminds me of Deontay Wilder in a way. But I mean, obviously Deontay was a home run hitter, as opposed to Tank, who's a skilled professional boxer. I think Tank wins the fight. I'm curious to see what a year off does to Tank Davis. I think Frank Martin has got a great opportunity. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. And, we've seen like when Tank fought Pitbull, all of a sudden the level went up and Tank had to get up. I think he suckered Ryan Garcia into rehydration clauses and stuff like that. But I think Tank is the classic guy that he fights against the level of his competition. And this is going to be a tough matchup. I think it's going to be a good fight. Tank wins the fight. I think wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance. But I think it's going to be a good fight, and it's going to tell us a lot about Tank, and if Tank wants to stay at 135, because 140 is floating out there too.
Yeah, so
Frank
the
Martin,
odds,
by the way, also a really good college basketball coach. I feel like I need to throw that in there. He's a busy
Shout
guy.
out Miami High.
Busy guy.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
I was gonna ask. So, do you think there's value in? I think Tank's like around 3-1 by decision right now. Would you like a play like that going into this?
Yeah, I was checking on BetMGM today. And Tank's minus 700. No, thank you. I think a decision. I think that would be an interesting way of approaching it. Just because I think Tank wants rounds. I think it would be prohibitive for him to go in there and knock him out in the first couple of rounds. I don't think he can. I think he'll lay those traps, and I think Frank Martin will get caught in it. But I think Frank Martin's a lot better than people think. And going back to the basketball coach, is that the most Cuban name ever? Frank Martin. That's I love. I'm Cuban. I'm Cuban. At least I have the Rodriguez in there. When Frank Martin, it's like when Troy O'Leary. I met Troy O'Leary. You don't look like a Troy O'Leary. Frank Martin. You don't look like a Frank Martin, my friend.
Well, you do look like a Jim Rodriguez. At J-Rod Show, host from ProBox TV and The Better Side, joining us here on Tapped Out. You mentioned Tank Davis, so I got to mention Ryan Garcia. What's next for him? Because now he's had back-to-back big-name fights. He's kind of teased a crossover matchup against Sean O'Malley. He's kind of a weird dude. What do you think actually is the next fight that we see Ryan Garcia in?
I heard there was a welfare check that they did. He said his mom isn't doing well. He's got the PEDs things with the New York State Athletic Commission. I think at the end of the day, and we know boxing, and we know how boxing is a lot like the beautiful city of Miami that I live in. It's a sunny place for shady people. That's what boxing is, a sunny place for shady people. And I think Ryan Garcia is perfect here. I think they will look at Ryan Garcia and say, Ryan, when do you want to fight next? I want to take a year off. Okay, you're suspended for a year. Oh, you want to fight in 6 months? Oh, you're suspended for 6 months. I think nothing will happen to Ryan Garcia. I think he proved his point. He's a cheater. He's a bad in a sense, but at the end of the day, he kept the money. Haney will get his O back. But the scary part is that he's actually a very good, skilled, entertaining fighter who knows how to sell fights. So that'll keep him employed listen, I think I would love to see him in the 140, maybe 147s to see who's out there. Virgil Ortiz 154. That may be too big, but maybe a welter, maybe those super lightweights. That 140 is an amazing class with Teofimo and Subriel Matias, and Haney's still in there. It's an amazing class. So I'd love to see him in a competitive fight, but he will be back. He will be back quickly. He'll be back when he wants to be back. I just hope that he gets surrounded with people that truly have his best interest and aren't just aren't succubuses.
Well, speaking of best interests, I'm curious. We have the news this week that the Mike Tyson Jake Paul bout has been punted to November. Has the medical issues that Mike Tyson has recently suffered that postponed this, supposed to be in July, has it changed your mind at all about doing this fight? Should they be doing this fight? Were you into this fight in the first place? Where do you stand? Tyson, Jake Paul, should they be doing this, even though it seems like Mike Tyson is way too old to be fighting?
I did find it ironic that he was in Miami when he had his episode. He was on a plane going back to LA. And that's the classic code of I thought we were going to say that Mike had some dehydration problems. Apparently it's an ulcer problem. So Mike Tyson's almost 60 years old. I have no interest in seeing this. It's like, hey, let's remake Mad Max, or let's remake this other movie, or let's remake that movie. I don't want to see that. is I love Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul is good for boxing because he gets people to watch boxing. I think the real star of that card is Serrano Taylor 2, and I think that needs to get made, and that needs to get made quickly. And the fact that two women could be fighting in front of 40, 50,000 people at AT&T Stadium, I think is what Jake Paul brings to the sport. But I don't want to see Mike Tyson in the ring. I really don't.
A lot of people don't.
And it's not that I have the greatest heart or I'm the greatest humanitarian. I think Mike's 60 years old, almost 60 years old. That's enough of that,
Nobody wants to see that. Jim Rodriguez, friend of the show from Pro Box TV and the Better Side, joining us here on Tapped Out. Great stuff as always, my friend. Thanks so much for your time. Coming up next here on the BetQL Network, BT brings on a fighter in tonight's main event. Xander Zayas joins us here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Welcome back into Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. Hey, we got some boxing tonight, baby. We not only have a little UFC, but a main event coming up on ESPN Top Rank. Xander Zayas, who I've been watching grow up basically down here in South Florida since he was 16 years old and became a pro. He is fighting tonight in his first main event on ESPN. Heavy odds tonight for him. He's like minus 1,500. So not great against Patrick Teixeira, proven guy, former champion. I am going to roll with Xander tonight. I'm going to go with him by knockout, which you can get at a much more palatable minus 150. He wins this night. He's probably a fight or two fights away from fighting for the belt. But I spoke to him in his training camp. Very, very hungry. I think he does go and get the knockout tonight, even though people are saying Teixeira very, very durable. I think this is one where he can go and get the finish. Here's our conversation with Xander Zayas in the middle of the camp. The X-Man, Xander Zayas, joining us here. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for coming here. I think, how many times have you been here already?
This is my first time at the new place.
First time in the new place, but you've been coming to the gym. I went to you guys a couple times, so excited to have you here.
I was excited. Thank you for having me, man. This is an exciting day. How many sparrings do you have left? It was the first time I've ever gotten to see you spar live.
Yeah, so after today, we have 3 left. We fly out to New York actually Friday. So we'll do 1 here, the last 2 in New York. First time flying to fight week or fight city 2 weeks out, so I'm excited for that.
This is got to be very exciting for you. Your first main event.
Yes.
ESPN, June 8th. Everybody tune in, South Florida. Puerto Rican week. You got the Puerto Rican parade that week. What does this mean to you?
Man, it means the world. I mean, at 21 years old, I dreamed of this. I dream of being the main event at the Mecca of Boxing in the Puerto Rican parade, but not at 21. No, so early in my career, so I'm excited. I'm happy, and I'm just blessed to be in this position. I'm fighting a great fighter. I mean, Patrick Teixeira, former world champion, somebody that has a lot of experience, and I'm excited to show the world that Puerto Rico is going to have a new world champion at 154 pounds.
Yeah, what are you most likely excited to show, man? Because, obviously every time you go out there, there's very high expectations. So, is it almost tough that you got to back yourself off? Because I imagine you want to go you want to put on a killer show.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to show everything. I just want to show that I've gotten better. My defense, my offense, my angles, my counterattacks, the way I box, the way I use the ring, my IQ, the concentration. I think everything. I want to work on everything. I want to showcase everything. But I'm ready to go. I think you saw today that I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm focused. The preparation is done. The preparation is done. Now it's just the final touches, final movement just to stay active and be ready for June 8th.
How do you feel knowing you as long as I have, you've really hit all these peaks and
Yes.
these check marks?
Yes.
Does this feel like a big one? Just the idea of being the center of the show? Because obviously, yeah, I get it. You want to perform well, but that is you got to be a showman
For
too.
sure.
And everyone's going to be there.
I feel like yes, this is a new peak that I've just hit. You can only get one first main event. This is it. I feel like there's 3 things in the boxing world that I was looking forward to do. Or 4 things. Signing, I already did that. Pro debut, I already did that. Now my first main event, I'm gonna do it June 8th, and then the first world title. You can only do those 4 things once in boxing, and I'm excited to do it for the first time June 8th.
You do what you expected to do against Patrick. We'll get to him in just a second, but do you have a person in mind that you'd like to take the title from? Is there somebody at 154? Is it going to be at 154?
Yeah.
What do you see?
Well, obviously after Patrick, I want to fight 2 more times. Hopefully one of those fights being an eliminator for the WBO. There's 2 guys in front of me, Erickson Lubin or Josh Kelly. Those 2 names, I think those are 2 fights that we can make happen. The company can make happen, and we can make it happen maybe for December.
Lubin's been interested in
Heisman night, New York City, or even here. Obviously, he's from Orlando. I'm from South Florida. Obviously, Puerto Rico. We could do it in Kissimmee, where there's a lot of his fan base, a lot of my fan base, and we could get it going.
That's a really entertaining fight with the 2 of you. I think that would be a hell of a matchup. We'll get to I got to ask you this, man. Look, you're going up to New York. Where are your loyalties right now with Panthers and Rangers? Because I know when you're there at MSG, they're going to be giving you the jersey. but you are a Panthers fan. I've seen you in the Panthers gear.
I am.
So when you're up there for Panthers Rangers, if they offer you the jersey, you be polite, you put it to the side. Will you still rock the Panthers sweater in New York?
Listen, if they'll give me the jersey, I'll take it. And if they invite me to a game, I won't put no jerseys because I won't be able to put the Panthers jersey the Panthers jersey going into the MSG.
We'll sneak a rubber rat in you, and then afterwards you
I'll
throw the rat.
You throw the rat.
Be like, what was that? Oh, nothing. That wasn't anything. But that's gotta be an unbelievably cool thing because I know that being a South Florida kid, but seeing the Puerto Rican fan base in New York is pretty crazy.
Yes.
That's got to be. I can't imagine the goosies that you must feel when you have that kind of fan base behind you.
Man, it's amazing. And again, just doing it at such a young age. Again, I started so early in my career that we've built this from the ground up. Now, just being in this position, seeing the love that I've been receiving from South Florida, from New York, from Puerto Rico, obviously, from all around the United States and the world, it's crazy. It's unbelievable to think about. It's unbelievable to just try to sit down and look back at it because it's something that I never thought it was going to happen so soon.
Have you are there do you allow yourself to soak it in at all, or is it hard because you gotta handle the task at hand? Like, do you allow yourself to enjoy it at all when you go to the city and take it all in, see the posters and all that, or are you a guy who's like everybody's like, oh, he's laser focused, he's not gonna enjoy any of this?
Well, I try to enjoy because I feel like at the end of the day that's the key to everything. Have fun, enjoy your job. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy doing the interviews. I enjoy going to the press conference, all of that. But obviously, the company and my team, and I know when it's time to focus and when it's time to cut everything off and time to laser focus, that day will come Friday. After Friday, I weigh in. There's nothing else. Nobody else is going to see me. I'm going to do my interviews with ESPN, back to my room, and nobody see me till Saturday.
I do appreciate when we had you on, you doing the Dame time, and you tried your recruitment that summer. Were you disappointed that the NBA was against Miami Heat?
I was disappointed. I told you that if Dame will come here, I'll become a fan of the Heat. But that didn't happen, so I'm still a Lakers fan.
Okay, dude, but what if if he's not happy in Milwaukee? Can we reroute? How can I get Heat fandom back on the table?
Well, if you guys get Dame or I don't know, then Mitchell.
Spida?
If you guys get Spida, he doesn't follow me, but if you guys get Spida, I could probably become a Heat fan.
I don't think he has a cool thing that you could do in the ring, though. I don't know if we could.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Spida thing that I could do.
Yeah, no.
Spider move or anything like that. No, I don't think I can do that.
We're still in football season, though. We got to have you hit the waddle at one point.
I know, yes. I do got to hit it. I do got to hit it, but I feel like I'll hit it when they're in season, when they're playing.
Yes.
So it makes more sense because now they're off season. Nobody's going to really know what I'm doing.
And then if you were to bring a rubber rat to the ring for the Panthers, the New York fans aren't going to like that.
Yeah, they're going to boo me.
Because the Panthers are going to eliminate the Rangers by then.
Yeah, that wasn't said by me.
No, that's me. I'm telling you, the Panthers are going to eliminate the Rangers. Xander didn't say that. I said that. Cat's in 6. I'm not worried about it. He's not. You guys don't even have to worry about it because the only show you're going to have at Madison Square Garden on June 8th, Rangers fans, is going to be Xander Zayas.
Yes, sir.
That's it, because the Knicks are done and the Rangers are going to be done.
Yeah,
so this is your show now. This is the show right here.
It is my show. It is my show. There's no questions about it. I didn't say that, but June 8th, that will put on a show on Madison Square Garden for sure.
He is your team now because the Panthers are going to eliminate you. Just so we're clear on that, dude. Just so we're clear on that. I just want to get your reaction. A couple things currently in boxing. This past week, Usyk beat Tyson Fury. What was your reaction to that?
Man, it was incredible. It was incredible. I didn't have nobody winning. I never picked a winner. I did say that whoever made the adjustment, Usyk got a second win, second half of the fight. He made the adjustment, went back to the body, went back to mixing body and head with his combinations, and he got the job done. I mean, that's the heart of a champion, being able to adjust, being able to execute, and he did that.
Can you explain that a little bit? Because it really felt like he had to adjust to a game plan in the midst of that, which makes Usyk so good.
So,
when you're in that and you see something, oh man, I got to fix this in the middle of a fight. What's that adjustment like?
So in the beginning rounds, if you see, Usyk was being active with his hand, with his movement, with his head, with his power, with his punch selection, going to the head, going to the body, going to the head. Then in the middle rounds, he stopped doing that. He went away from that, just trying to put power punches to the head. And Fury was taking advantage of it, with just outboxing him, just touching him here and there, because that's Fury's game plan. I mean, he's so long, he's so tall. He didn't want to fight in the inside. And then after he got hit, or he got touched up in like round 6, Usyk did.
Yeah.
He made the adjustment, and then he went back to the body, back to the head, mixing those levels, and then he caught Fury in like round 8. I thought the fight was over, but again, we got to realize it's an undisputed world championship for the heavyweight division. You got to give those guys a chance. I feel it was the right call to let them fight, and we had an excellent show.
Patrick Teixeira, southpaw. You're getting ready, obviously, in camp. You're sparring southpaw. Like, how is that a concern for you at all, or do you like this matchup? Like, people always say southpaw, weird thing to take on.
Brendan, I enjoy the matchup. I enjoy every matchup. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy people saying that it's going to be a hard fight. I enjoy people saying he has more experience than me. I enjoy people saying I might lose. I enjoy that. I embrace it. At the end of the day, I'm gonna go out there and do my job. I'm gonna show the world that I can adjust, that I can be better, that I'm better than anybody they put in front of me. And I'm excited. There's no nerves. There's no concern. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna perform. I'm gonna listen to the corner and have fun.
Are you a guy, like, are you a receipt taker? Because, like, trolls are very active these days. They can get at you. I know, dude, listen, I never see you not have a smile on your head and enjoy what you do, but, like, I also can see the Fury part of it, too. Like, the serious, like, oh, like, is there something that will be like, oh, that's in the bank, and I'm going to carry that with me? Or is it just getting to your accomplishments?
I try not to pay attention to what the media say, or what people has to say about me, because everybody's going to have different opinions. Everybody's going to say, oh, he's good. No, he's bad. He's not ready. Oh, he's ready. So I can't pay attention to that too much. I do keep receipt from people that I care, or people that I think is important, like boxers or something. You know, I keep receipt for that, because I know at some point we'll meet in person, or we'll have to face each other in the ring, and I'll keep those receipts for sure.
Xander Zayas fighting June 8th, ESPN, mother bleeping main event now. Look at this kid.
Yes,
He's
sir.
all grown up,
Yes,
South
sir.
Florida. Proud of you, Xander.
Thank you,
Enjoy
brother.
this week, man. You deserve it.
Thanks.
And we can't wait to see you do what you do.
Man, thank you. South Florida, thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the support. I see you guys June 8th, ESPN. Buy your tickets if you guys could go to New York, and I see you guys over there.
Yes, and that's going to be after, of course, you guys are eliminated by the Panthers.
Dude.
In 6. That's how it's going to go.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Rolling right along here on the BetQL Network with Brendan Tobin. It's me, the sports machine, Sean Levine. Let's get into some news in the world of fighting. We'll get to the Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler stuff here in just a couple of minutes. The press conference in Dublin was called off. Does that mean the fight is going to be called off? Is there any sort of a replacement out there? Again, we'll get to all the Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler stuff here in just a couple of minutes. Speaking of fight and being rescheduled, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul is back on for November 15th. I remember last week on the show, you said they might as well not just postpone it and just go ahead and cancel it. You were talking about Mike Tyson's 58 years old, and guys who are that close to 60 shouldn't be fighting. You always talk about nobody gives a damn about Jake Paul. I assume your feelings haven't changed in a week now that we know that the fight is back on.
No, my feelings haven't changed. And look, I'm not surprised that it's getting rescheduled, but I also won't be surprised if something else happens in the next months that postpone it yet again. Because again, he's 58, which I think Mike Tyson just turned 58. Happy birthday to Mike Tyson. I think that I feel like that just happened. So happy birthday, Iron Mike. It's kind of like J-Rod said earlier in the show. I don't have a need to see Mike Tyson fight anymore. It doesn't prove anything to me other than the only result I feel like we're all going to get that we're going to like is Mike Tyson knocks Jake Paul into the bleachers, because we're not going to want to see an old man get knocked out. Nobody really wants to see that happen to our icons. And I just don't know. Like it's short rounds. It's big gloves. I don't know what his cardio is. And again, he's pushing 60. So what are we doing this for, really, other than just to feed our greed, to feed our need to see him out there one more time? I don't get the point of it. There, we got to find somebody scarier, a little bit younger, who Jake Paul could get in there. Why didn't he fight Deontay Wilder? You want to fight somebody who's a little over the hill and fight somebody who's a heavyweight who's very scared? Why doesn't he fight Deontay Wilder if you want to do it?
That'd be awesome. I'd be down for that.
What's the
now,
like? What?
I think the only reason you ask about it, and I haven't heard that mentioned, that's kind of fun, is the same thing. Now, Tyson and Deontay Wilder, obviously great heavyweight champions in their own right. Tyson was an icon, a public, a pop culture icon for years and still is. So you mentioned people don't want to see Jake Paul knock him out. I think because Deontay Wilder has gotten knocked out so viciously recently, you'd get a lot of the same thing where people are like, yeah, it'd be great if Deontay Wilder puts Jake Paul in the bleachers, but I think there's some people that don't want to see Jake Paul knock out Deontay Wilder too.
He's not going to knock out. What are we talking about here, dude? He's not going to knock out Deontay
That does not
Wilder.
look crazy when I say it.
It's a ridiculous.
When I say it out loud, it sounds a little ridiculous.
You've said a lot of dumb things on this show. That's right up there, dude. Like that, he's not. But I'm just saying, you know what my point is? Like, if you wanted to go and do a super dangerous fight, do it of somebody who's of a quality age that we could do this with. Yeah, maybe it's not going to do the buzz. It doesn't capture the world like Mike Tyson does, but it's kind of sick that it does, because it's already medically been postponed, where they already had medical parameters, safety parameters to try and protect, I assume, Mike Tyson with bigger gloves and shorter rounds. Now on top of it, we're postponing it till November so he can get a formidable time to properly train for this. I don't know, dude. Yes, my point remains the same. I don't.
You're against the elderly. I get it.
I'm not against the elderly. If anything, I'm for the elderly.
I don't know. Speaking of boxing, next week, Gervonta Davis steps back into the ring, heavy favorite against Frank Martin. You can get 4-1 on the underdog. You're going to pay the -600 for Tank Davis next Saturday night.
I don't think I am, actually. I think we've been talking about this with boxing lines and guys who are formidable. I just think there's something to betting on a guy who's as big a dog as Frank Martin is, just because he's really good. He's never lost. There's a little bit of a past here from the sparring game with them, but I don't know. I just think there's something to Frank Martin. He's a difficult fighter. You could say he hasn't been under the bright lights. That's always a thing against Gervonta Davis, but we've seen some guys have some success. So I think there's just something to throwing a little something on boxing underdogs who are capable these days. And for me, that's Frank Martin. I think there's a possibility. We've seen vulnerabilities from Gervonta Davis. Even him by knockout is like minus 175. I'm like, that's pretty crazy that people think that Frank Martin's that prone to getting knocked out in this matchup. I think if you are going to go with Gervonta, I would go by decision. If anything, you get that at least 3-1.
Yeah, never forget that Frank Martin also took the South Carolina Gamecocks to the Final Four just a few years ago. Speaking of the boxing ring, Usyk and Fury, the rematch is on. That was a crazy fight because at the beginning it looked like it was all Fury. In the middle it looked like it was all Usyk. You could argue who won the last round. What are the chances that if we see that fight again, that Tyson Fury is still in his prime? I think that we now know that Tyson Fury has gotten punched in the head. I'm not saying he needs to retire like Deontay Wilder. I'm just saying maybe a tune-up fight before an Usyk rematch.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is he just makes so much money these days. Like, who do they pay a tune-up fight for against him? You know, like, and who are the guys out there that you really would tune him? Like, who's he going to go fight?
Paul.
Joe? And then yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, I think that these are one of those things where he's got to get right back in there with Usyk. What can he do? Man, I guess work on his, I would say the best method. He had a pretty good method, but I think what the thing is like once Usyk figures out that, and he's probably going to have it figured out that uppercut up the middle from a long range, you got to get to a point where he can wrestle him and lean on him against the ropes. And I don't think we've seen that from Tyson Fury. And when he tried, I mean, he got ragdolled by Usyk. He got thrown up against the ropes. So he's got to, I think, probably work on his strength a little bit. Strange as that is to say against Usyk, because he definitely didn't have to do that against Wilder, but Usyk's is a Ukrainian tank dude. And so I think that's what he's got to focus on is can he win an inside game against Usyk and bring that to the table this next time around.
And Usyk has all the belts right now. So obviously Tyson Fury wants to get his hands back on those. And by the way, Tyson Fury and those ropes got very well acquainted in that fight. All right, let's talk some UFC. Hey, ladies. Tough 32 is on. Shevchenko versus Grasso. Honestly, I haven't watched Tough in a while. I don't know how much of this one I'm going to check out, but I'm interested in the fight when it goes down.
I am too. I saw the clip that went viral this week of Valentina refusing to let her team drink water. She's like, We don't drink water in training. After, not now.
That's a good accent. I didn't know you had that in you. When we brought on Alexander Volkov, why didn't you give him that?
Told us to go Russian ice diving. What do you think? Why didn't I do that? I'm terrified of him.
That's fair. Yeah, he was scary. Although, man, his interpreter is one of the greatest guys that I've ever met. If I've ever wanted to hang out with somebody, that guy just looked like he'd be a good time. Speaking of ladies, Macy Barber and Thug Rose will be headlining UFC Denver. Rose in Denver at the top of the marquee makes a lot of sense. We've talked a lot about fighters still in their prime, right, during tonight's show in the queso. And really, you think about it like an Alexander Volkanovski. You think about it, Israel Adesanya. You think about it, Tyson Fury. It's been a very topical conversation. Is Rose still in her prime?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, she won in March. She beat Amanda Ribas by decision, for a nice little bounce back after a couple straight losses. The Carla Esparza fight was very, very strange. I think for her, this is going to be a big question because you have Macy Barber, who is, just crazy to say. We're talking about who could be maybe the next face of the women's division. And Macy Barber, 26 years old, seems like she's got everything. She's rolling on a big win streak right now. So I think this is a big moment for Macy, just as it is for Rose, because I think Rose is kind of solidified as one of those faces of women's MMA, and Macy's still trying to get there. So a win over Rose Namajunas, even at this point in Rose's career, I don't think she's completely washed or anything like that. I think it would mean a lot for Macy if she's going to do anything in this division.
Sounds like you're saying she's the future. Brendan Tobin and the Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL Network. All right, let's talk about Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler supposedly have a fight coming up in about a month. UFC 303 in Las Vegas. We were supposed to have the press conferences. There was supposed to be a tour, kind of like we saw back in the day with Nate Diaz. I guess it'd actually be more comparable to the tour that he did with Floyd Mayweather, where it's going all around the world, including Dublin. That was supposed to happen earlier this week, BT. I was looking forward to it. I wanted to hear how sharp Conor's tongue was. I wanted to hear how much because Michael Chandler can talk into a microphone now too. I wanted to see the back and forth, and it didn't happen. You're concerned that it didn't happen, that maybe the fight's not going to happen either.
It's high. And it's impossible for it not to be, just because of who we're dealing with here with Conor McGregor. I mean, he hasn't fought in a while, and if the rumors out there that he's dealing with an injury are true, I mean, yeah, of course you have to be on high alert for this, because the guy is already coming off of a monster injury with a snapped leg. I don't care how many years ago it was and how many training sessions he's had. So my antenna are up. I know that the rumors have gone that it's going in a more positive direction, and people will throw at Conor's face, hey, I thought you never pull out of a fight. Don't be stupid, people. Like, the guy is coming off of a very, very dangerous, serious injury. If Conor McGregor does have to postpone this fight, and we don't have to, look, it sucks for Michael Chandler. Obviously, he's been waiting around forever, but if you have to punt on this fight for 4 months, do it. By no means should Conor McGregor be going into any type of a fight impaired after what he's already coming into the fight with the snapped leg.
Of course, we all agree with that. Although from the UFC perspective and a fan's perspective, what do you do, bro? Because I don't know if you've seen the rest of that card. It was Conor McGregor, and it was a bunch of other people. And that's what you do on a Conor McGregor card. You don't have to stack it up like 299 or 300. You put Conor on there. You put some up-and-coming stars. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you keep Michael Chandler as half of it. I assume that if you just delay it and don't cancel it, then Chandler, he's waited this long, so he's not going to step in there. He's going to wait for the McGregor fight. What do you do? We're talking about now a month away.
Well, I think the tough thing too is, right, like, you look at it, and typically in a situation like this, you only have to replace one fighter, right?
That's what I'm saying.
It feels like if you do this, you have to replace it with a completely new fight, because I can't imagine Michael Chandler's just going to go fight anybody, right? Like, you're going to
waited this long. There's no way.
The only, and so, like, where do you go? It's a tough situation, man. I don't really have the answer. Typically, like, I'll have something that's in the holster for it, but I don't really know, because you can't really, like, say, hey, Mike, fight for the welterweight championship and take it away from Bilal. They can move that up. Can't really do that. Who's like a matchup for Michael Chandler that makes a lot of sense, especially at 170, like Kamaru Usman? Like, do you pull him out of the bullpen? I don't know what you do.
No, none of that. Here's what you do. You call your boy Nate Diaz, and you call your boy George Masvidal, and you're like, guys, what are you doing? Why are you guys boxing? We need a main event coming up about the same time period. If you guys are both coming back to the UFC, and I remember you said on last week's show that you said both of them you think are going to eventually come back sooner rather than later, just give them all the money in the world and make that your fight. How you like that one?
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it. But again, like, I don't know what the contractual obligation.
Those are also guys but I don't call last minute and be like, I'll pay you, come back, put your name on the dotted line. I'll give you a lot of money. Short notice means nothing to those guys. They already hate each other. They're already in camp to fight. I think I just did Dana's work for him.
Here's the thing, though. Like, what is the payoff? Like, Dana probably has to buy out, like, the Honda Center that they are booked for in a couple of weeks. Like, you can't just, you can't. And what? Like, are you going to do that for a Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz fight on 2 weeks' notice? I don't know, man. I don't know if you can sell that, to be honest with you. It's like, this is one of those ones where, like, does Sean O'Malley put on the cape? I don't know. Like, do they fast track something like that? Like, this is one of those where, yes, Dana is going to have to back up the Brinks truck if that is the case. Because it probably feels like you're going to have to do an entire fight and do it on less than ideal circumstances. We're talking June 29th. So as we do this is less than 3 weeks notice. You're going to basically, you have to be training already for some kind of fight. It's a really, really tough situation if Conor isn't able to fight, but I cannot, say this enough, Sean. If he's not good to fight, he shouldn't fight. Like, he should not be pushing through anything to make this happen, because he's already coming into this thing with an injury that nobody's come back from in a good way.
Yeah, and as soon as I heard that the fight was announced, I was like, wow, okay, cool, he's back. But I was always taking it with a grain of salt, right? Not that Connor pulls out of fights, but as you mentioned, coming off of the injury, all the other stuff outside the octagon, it was always a question. So fingers crossed, toes crossed that we end up getting that fight. Coming up next, we keep talking a little bit more fighting, and we keep making a little bit more money together right here on the BetQL Network.
Sean Levine will step into the cage with Brendan Tobin in Are You Gonna Fight Me?
I'm gonna fight your ass!
Here on Tapped Out.
That's right, fight me like a man.
Only on the BetQL network.
You know the rules. I want a good, clean fight. When I tell you to break, I want you to step back up my command and break. Now go back to the corner and come out fighting at the bell.
Welcome back into the show. Good Saturday evening. Appreciate you checking us out wherever you are on the BetQL network. Well, we used to be friends, but now we're foes. It's time for a couple of guys on the radio to fight each other. Segment's called You Gonna Fight Me. BT, earlier in the show, we had on Jim Rodriguez. We were talking a little bit of boxing, and he mentioned the importance of Jake Paul. You're gonna fight me if I say over the last 5 or 6 years, I think Jake Paul's had a bigger impact on boxing than any other human being. You might not like him, but his impact has been huge.
What's his impact been?
People are watching. People are talking about it. Even when he's in a fight versus a 5'6" basketball player, Nate Robinson, that retired a few years ago, it still gets at least some sort of eyeballs and people talking about it at the water cooler. The Mike Tyson conversation has become big. His fights versus old UFC fighters. And it just gets people talking about boxing again. Honestly, we started this show about 3 years ago, and Jake Paul had already kind of came into the pantheon of boxing and all that. But I think that since the time we've been doing the show, boxing it's kind of come back.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a lot to do with that.
Really?
I think that's had more to do with young guys fighting each other. I give the credit to Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder fighting each other, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, Canelo Alvarez becoming undisputed champion. I think that boxing.
This is where I fight you, though, bro. Canelo's been here before Jake Paul got here. Same thing with Tyson Fury, and that's when boxing was dying. That's when people were like, "All right, there's nobody that I really want to watch."
Well, that's not
fight.
true. No. Hold on. That's where when Vladimir Klitschko had the heavyweight championship, that's when the heavyweight division was dead and boring. When Tyson Fury becomes when he gets the belt back in his second reign after beating Klitschko, then all of a sudden we have the Undertaker memes of Deontay Wilder knocking him out, him coming back, then their rematch. You have, young guys, this hot 135 division with some of the best talent that we've ever seen. I get it. There's been people who have been trying to take the throne from Floyd Mayweather that haven't necessarily done it. But dude, Jake Paul, I'm not a Jake Paul hater. I'm really not. But I think he is what he is. He does freak show stuff. It's for the Jake Paul stuff. We already know he can't box. He lost a decision to Tommy Fury. Then he was fighting in Orlando against dudes with non-impressive records because he says he's going to go and fight for the title. Nobody watched or cared about them. Can you name those opponents that he knocked out in the first round? Of course you can't. Why? Because you don't care if Jake Paul can really box or not. The whole thing is to do with Jake Paul caring about Jake Paul. I've said this a long time. Honestly, if he wanted more credit as a fighter, he should have gone to PFL and fought in the PFL. He wants to be a tough guy. The only thing I'll give him a little bit of credit for is, taking Amanda Serrano under his wing and giving her a big platform and doing good for fighter pay and challenging Dana White. I'll give you some credit. He's done some good things, but as far as the rise of boxing, his interest, nah, I'm not there with you, dude.
I feel like your points are all about how good of a boxer Jake Paul is. And I'm not saying Jake Paul's a good boxer. I'm just saying that he's been unbelievably important to the sport. Again, because it's not really about sometimes winning or losing or even being great at what you do. George Masvidal is your favorite UFC fighter of all time. His record's not that great, but we were always watching him fight. He was selling out arenas. Eyeballs were on him. So I think that Jake Paul deserves dude, they're about to fight. The rematch is set for November 15th versus Mike Tyson.
But Sean, that's because of Tyson. That's because of Tyson, not Jake. Honestly, here's the truth of it. Mike Tyson could go fight. He could go fight an ostrich, and it'll get 1 million pay-per-view buys. And Jake Paul could, and it wouldn't. There's numbers and metrics to this. You're talking about the greatest pay-per-view star we've ever had in Mike Tyson, the biggest boxing card that Jake Paul's ever been on. He was on his undercard boxing a slam dunk champion. That's Mike Tyson. That's not Jake Paul.
All right, I'll give you a 10-9. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, fighting it out here on the BetQL network. Fury and Usyk are going to have a rematch. You're going to fight me if I say this time Usyk knocks him out. Honestly, he was probably about to knock him out if the ropes didn't save him in the first fight.
I think that's probably true. That Tyson Fury would have been, if it wasn't for those damn ropes, he would have been curtains. He would have been curtains, and I think that referee saved his Gypsy King butt.
Nobody knows how to use those ropes better than Tyson Fury, because it's not like he got knocked against the ropes on one side of the ring. He got knocked against the ropes on all the sides of the rings. Like, that was incredible. Actually, both on Usyk's part for continuing the barrage and putting it on him, but also for Tyson Fury for not really going down on his ass, for being able to stay up. Yeah, I think if we see the rematch, we saw at the end of that, not the end actually, because Fury actually looked pretty good at the end. But in those middle to late rounds, BT, it looked like I should say Usyk really figured something out. It was Fury early. It was Usyk in the middle. Fury was pretty good toward the end. What do you think the odds would look like in that fight? Something tells me Usyk's like a minus 225.
Man, I think that people got a lot of worry around Tyson Fury right now. You know, the guy has had some struggles outside the ring. He's retired, unretired. He's dealt with some mental health issues. Now he's taken some pretty physical beatings, dude. I mean, yes, he won the Deontay Wilder rivalry, but he took a lot of big shots. He got knocked down very viciously by Francis Ngannou. That's not fun. They pushed his fight back. It hurt his jaw. Now he gets absolutely clubbed by Alexander Usyk. I mean, look, even at 6'9", being 3, whatever the hell he is, on weight, or 270, whatever the hell he is on weight, your head can only take so many shots. And I do think that there's a little bit of a worry that Tyson Fury is maybe just hitting the end of that road when it comes to this stuff, that he's just been hit too many times.
He got hit a lot of times in that barrage that I'm talking about. It's not like Usyk just hit him once. That's the type where you get a little bit concerned. You're like, that round, right? That 20 seconds of boxing, that is not good for a guy like Tyson Fury this late in his career. And I remember we had questions going into it, coming off the Ngannou fight, right? Is this guy still in his prime? Was he just out of shape? And then early on the fight, like I was referring to, he looked pretty good. I'm with you, man. I've got my questions about Fury. You mentioned Deontay Wilder, and he got his ass knocked out last week also, actually, when we were on the air. You're going to fight me if I say it's clearly time for the Bronze Bomber to hang him up.
No, I'm not going to fight you. First of all, I mean, he's sneaky old. He's pushing 40. And
is he really? Looks great.
Yeah. He does look great. No, he physically looks great, but this is another man who, he's taken a lot of big shots. I mean, the only thing that's really out there that he never did was fight Anthony Joshua. And I think if you were to talk about where those two guys are right now in their career, I think that'd be a vicious night at the office for Deontay Wilder. Yeah, it's time. He's gonna be remembered, I think, as a one-trick pony, but man, that trick was really, really entertaining. People will always say, hey, he didn't have the boxing skill, but guy held a piece of the heavyweight title for a very long time. He had some vicious knockouts. His wins over Luis Ortiz were very, very impressive, because Luis Ortiz was no joke. So he's always going to have my respect, but I do agree. I think that it's time for him to hang them up and go into whatever and I honestly think he could be tremendous in broadcasting if he wanted to be. I think he's a great personality. So I think there's a place for him in the sport. I just don't think it should be in the ring anymore.
Great highlight package. Tons of knockouts, obviously, in his career. But yeah, the Bronze Bomber's best days are clearly behind him. Speaking of boxing, we're going to see Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, and their dudes got into it, their crews, outside after the press conference. Now that I've seen those guys kind of go back and forth in the hallways and their teams fighting, I want to see that fight in the UFC again. You going to fight me?
No, I'm not going to fight you. I would prefer it if it was in the UFC. I don't really understand why. I don't really understand why this isn't a boxing match. I find that strange, especially with Masvidal basically saying that he has a wink deal that I guess he's getting a big up front. I guess that's the answer. He must be getting a ton of money for this fight up front to do this fight.
A boxing match either. Something tells me this is the one. And I've been waiting for an MMA guy in one of these crossovers just to I was waiting on Ben Askren to try to choke out Jake Paul or whatever. It didn't happen too often. Conor McGregor and the Mayweather fight a couple of times, like he kind of wanted to. This is the one, though. There's no way this one stays a boxing match.
Well, the other thing that was weird about it, first of all, it's already been pushed back once because I think it was the same night as 302. It was supposed to be that night.
Yeah.
And so they pushed it back. They didn't want to compete. They did 3 press tour cities. They did Miami, LA, and New York. And do you remember anything that came out of those? Like nothing. So they did this the right way. You know, people always say, hey, are brawls, are they real? Are they I don't know. Who knows? But it is good for business. It does draw eyeballs. Now people are wondering, oh yeah, they are fighting. So I guess that's great for attention. It definitely will bring more eyeballs to their fight, but I'm not against it. No, I definitely agree with you. I would rather see that fight in the UFC than in boxing.
That brawl was real. That was ask the guy in the dreadlocks with the black eye. That brawl was 100. And
those things
Masvidal's in the middle of it.
Listen, he's not one to be trifled with, dude. He's from the streets of Miami. Like it's him and Nate Diaz are real ones.
What are you people about Miami?
It's a sunny place for shady people.
You live there. J-Rod lives there. Colby lives there. Masvidal. It may starting to make a lot of sense to me, actually. You're going to fight me here on the BetQL network. Sean Strickland was in a fight last Saturday night against Paulo Costa. You're going to fight me if I say Costa is and probably always has been overrated. He looks great. He's kind of funny. The secret sauce, the secret juice, all that stuff. He's 1-5 in his last 6 fights. He got beat up in his title fight. Like I'm not saying he sucks, but he ain't main event, pay-per-view, co-main event material.
I'm not gonna fight you on that because that was my point going into this fight. I thought it was the easiest bet of the night last week when everybody was saying, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know." I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking at his record. The last guy he knocked out was Uriah Hall. Before that was Johnny Hendricks, dude. Like those are guys and fine fighters in their own right, but neither of them are in the UFC anymore. They were mentioned on the broadcast that they thought it was the Izzy fight that took it away. I'm with you. I just think he kind of is what he is. I think he's an explosive fighter. He's definitely dangerous. But I think if you have more skill as a striker, I think you think about the guys. He's not in the class of Robert Whittaker. He's not in the class of Sean Strickland. He's not in the class of Izzy Adesanya. I think that you can keep yourself at a safe distance and put a lot of damage on Paulo Costa. And that I can't believe, by the way, one person gave the fight to Paulo Costa. That was crazy. That judge needs to be put in handcuffs.
Worst scorecard. I say this a lot. That might be the worst scorecard I've ever seen, only because the other 2 judges clearly gave it to Sean Strickland. I think it was pretty clearly Sean Strickland. Let's go down that path for just a second. How frustrating is it as a fight fan that we keep putting it on these judges and Dana is asked afterwards and he says, look, I can't do anything about it. And it's the commissions themselves and all that stuff. Here's why it sucks. The fighters train, right? Dana tries to make the fights and the referee does his job 99% of the time. We don't really complain about that. And it always comes down to these judges. It's not like there's a pool of 200 judges. There's a few of these guys and gals out there. Why can't they get it right? And when they suck as bad as this one does, why don't they just go away? Like, I hate talking about it.
I'm with you. I don't understand it because Dana has done this with referees before. You know, who was the dude? Mario Yamasaki. Am I getting his name right? And Dana White,
I think Dana has the power to do that. He can't do that with the judges because that's the commission.
Why not?
So I'm not blaming Dana.
So are refs, though. No, but the refs are commissioned. Like he could, Dana definitely could do it. I don't know if I think that it's with judges. I think maybe they're a little bit more with the maybe they're more in the I don't know friendships of the commissions or whatnot. So maybe it's a little tougher. But I feel like he definitely could put a cancel list on some of these people.
As a fan, it's just frustrating because we watch. Like I'm being dead serious. What I'm about to say. You and I should be judges. If that guy's a judge. You and I know more about fighting. I know what a 10-8 looks like, right? I know when a guy wins a round. Sometimes I'm a little bit off compared to the other judges, but never that egregiously. So it's one of the things about the sport that I'm not the only one that loves the sport but gets frustrated all the time by the judges. And then afterwards, Dana just kind of throws his hands up. If he can do something, he should, honestly. Because it's
I'm too biased with my gambling to judge.
That's fine. That's because you're in Miami. again, what is it? Shady People, Hot Place. That was great.
Close
Coming up next, we talk more fighting and we make more money. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, and you right here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
What's good? Appreciate you checking us out this Saturday night here on the BetQL Network with BT on the Sports Machine. Last Saturday night, Islam took out Dustin Poirier, kept his belt. Also, Islam Makhachev retained his number one pound-for-pound rankings. Let's go over that updated list. Let's work our way from 10 to 1. Number 10, Merab is at number 10, and he's got a fight coming up against Sean O'Malley. How do you think that fight goes down?
I'm kind of leaning Sean O'Malley just because he's the dog right now in that fight, and I'm Merab's looked as dominant as it gets right now for sure, but I'm leaning O'Malley, to be honest with you, which I'm a little surprised by, but he was very impressive his last, he's impressive in his title fight, impressive against his defense against Cheeto. I know that was probably a little bit of a mismatch, and Merab was more deserving. This is a completely different matchup, but I like this one. I think Sean is a dog. I just think there's value there.
Don't say dog too much because you get my dogs barking, so just be careful with that one. Are you surprised, though? Speaking of dog, that O'Malley's the underdog, the champion underdog in this fight? Merab has beat 3 straight champions.
I'm not surprised just because we talk about this all the time. Like grapplers, if you have the advantage, and I think it's a pretty even fight, they typically get the favoritism, as we saw in the Dustin Poirier fight, right? Like when you can control the ground, you can control the majority of the fight. And so then you shrink the opportunities for the strikers to go get the wins where they can get the wins. So it's just kind of a math game at that point. Like unless you think that Sean O'Malley's takedown defense is dwarfing of Merab's overwhelming, grappling where he's just been picking up people and throwing them. There's a huge size discrepancy here, obviously, but I think that's just why you see it. I'm not that surprised by it.
Yeah, shrinkage is no good at all. At number 9 on the pound-for-pound rankings, Dricus du Plessis was in a close fight to get his belt against Sean Strickland. Next fight against Israel Adesanya. We haven't talked a lot about that one. Styles make fights. It's weird because, I don't know, if we see a rematch against Sean Strickland versus DDP, I think it's going to go off at pretty close to even money. I think if we see a Sean Strickland versus Adesanya fight, I can't believe these words coming out of my mouth. Strickland was so dominant, I can actually see him being the favorite in that fight. Who do you think ultimately it will be? Because it's going to be Sean Strickland next. Do you like DDP or Adesanya?
It's a great question because I think out of all of the great, champions who have lost their belt or faced adversity, I think Izzy has probably done the best. We've seen him come back from losses against Jan Blachowicz and come back and reign over middleweight. We've seen him suffer a huge knockout loss to Pereira and then come back and knock him out. So this guy's good at bouncing back. He is. He's one of the more active champions that there is. I think that counts for something. So this is going to be coming off one of the bigger breaks he's had in his career. I'm riding with Stylebender. I think there's also something I like when Stylebender has a little bit of fury going into a fight. He seemed to really take the rematch against Pereira seriously. I don't think that he really did against Sean Strickland. Remember, that was supposed to be DDP anyway. DDP was the guy that he wanted to fight. So I'm going and I'm leaving the Stylebender for that one.
I agree with everything you just said. Lots of good points. And sometimes when there's actual bad blood, fighters don't do their best. Izzy does. Like, he's had bad blood, right, against Pereira. He's had bad blood against some of these other guys, and he ends up beating him up or knocking him out. He's got real bad blood against DDP. I think that's a good chance to make some money. I think Izzy wins that fight, and I think he knocks him out when that one goes down. Going over the pound-for-pound rankings, number 8, Pantoja coming off a couple of wins, obviously most recently against Usyk. Before that, Brandon Moreno. At number 7, we talked about, that's Sean O'Malley. He's got the fight coming up against Merab. At number 6, if you would have told me 3 years ago when we started this show that this guy would ever end up back at number 6 in the pound-for-pound rankings, I would say, dude, what are you smoking, and how do I get some of that? Max Holloway. It just feels good saying it. Max Holloway is the number 6 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. I know he's the BMF. It's just still crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, his resume speaks for itself on what he is. I honestly think there's arguments that he could be even higher on the list just because no one's really touched him at featherweight other than Volkanovski, and he just knocked out one of the best lightweights on the planet. Like, there's just not many people in the world that can mess with Max Holloway in multiple weight classes. Isn't that, one of the points of pound for pound is that you could be pretty dominant in a bevy of weight classes. So for me, yeah, you can say that ranking is surprising, and I get you because we probably thought he's never going to be back in the title picture. But man, I think that there's arguments that he could be even higher on the list, and that there's not going to be a lot of argument because this guy is probably one of the more beloved fighters in all of the UFC. But not only that, he backs it up. His results have been awesome.
Outside of a McGregor fight, what matchup do you want to see most for Max Holloway next? Because he's got options, as you said, at multiple weight classes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I would like to see if he's not going to fight Conor, which is definitely like one of the things I always got to remember with Conor is I got to see how he's going to look against Michael Chandler and how he's going to look weight-wise. Does he look like a guy who can even fight these guys who are way down? And yes, Michael Chandler will jump at the opportunity to go up to 170 to fight him. It doesn't mean necessarily Max will. So I got to keep that in mind. But
Conor? Sure he would.
I don't know, dude. I mean, it's not everybody's going to do that. I mean, Max Holloway doesn't I think march to that beat, and I think that he's kind of carved his path. He can fight for the title. I think if he's not going to fight, if he doesn't have a Conor showdown, I think him fighting for the featherweight title. I think that's he's arguably the best featherweight champion of all time, and now you got this stud young guy who they seem to have a lot of heat against one another, and it's not easy to get Max Holloway heated and bothered by something. So him and Topuria, I think, is a huge moneymaker.
By the way, Ilia Topuria happens to be next on this particular list, so that would be number 6 pound for pound Max Holloway, number 5 Ilia Topuria, who right now is hotter than Farrah Fawcett in a forest fire. As you said, he's one of those fighters that his name is definitely out there right now, and he's worked his way, that's crazy, this quick, all the way up to number 5 on the pound-for-pound list. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking a little fighting with you here on Tapped Out. Number 4, Leon Edwards. Thank goodness we finally got a fight coming up for Leon because it feels like it's been talked about for a while. It's coming up against Bilal in July. I'm glad that Bilal's getting his opportunity. I think Leon knocks him out.
I think Leon's gonna win too. I honestly think Leon's a little high on this list, though. I do. I think, just from my standpoint,
or what is it? I mean, what more do you want to see?
I don't.
10 years, right?
I don't look at Leon at. I understand. I don't know. There's something about it. I'm just like, I don't look at Leon pound for pound as one of the top 5 fighters on the planet, and I don't even know if beating Bilal is going to do that for me. He did have an amazing win against Kamaru Usman, who was flirting with being number 1 for a long time. I don't know what that is. It's an instinct, you're kind of just like, too high. Yeah, it's nothing against him. It's just like, that's just my reaction to it. When you say it, I'm like, too high. I don't know.
You and everybody else. I mean, everybody kind of feels that way about Leon. That's been the story of his entire career. And like I said, the entire way, he just wins fights and knocks people out and has, come on, Rocky. Come on, Rock. Are you kidding me? I've become a Leon Edwards fan, and he's a friend of the show. When he came on, I was like, man, this is going to be kind of boring. Leon was cool. Leon was kind of funny. I like Leon. At number 3 in the updated pound-for-pound rankings, Alex Pereira. We mentioned his fight against Israel Adesanya. It looks like it probably is going to be Yuri Prohashka next. There's not a scarier guy right now in Pereira who can fight at any weight class.
No, I mean, like, look, you want to talk about pound for pound. I mean, the guy's already been champion of 2 divisions. He's legitimately probably the only guy in the sport you could look at and be like, yeah, he could be champion in 3 weight classes. Like, if you told me him versus any of the top heavyweights, you wouldn't give him a shot. Of course you would. I mean, he's a monster. He's like a chameleon, the way that he's able to do this seemingly as only a striker with just some of the scariest aura around him in the sport. This guy is what a pound for pound list is about. And honestly, like, yeah, if anybody's going to threaten the guys that are already on top, maybe it's him. You know, he's kind of like the Alexander Usyk of MMA. Like, yeah, he might actually go up to heavyweight and win the title one day against Aspinall or John Jones or whomever has it, Curtis Blades, and I would definitely give him a shot.
I don't know that he gets past Yuri Prochazka. I agree with everything that you said, but Prochazka, man, remember how good he was at 300, throwing those elbows. He looks healthy. He's got the knees. That's a fight, man. You want to talk about a striker's delight? What a matchup that one is.
Very fun. It's a fun weight class. It's great that 205 is finally like settling in and has a champion. I think that everybody looks at and says, "Oh man, that's the guy right there." He's a lot of fun. It's a hell of a story to do what he's been able to do in this short amount of time of being a professional mixed martial artist is pretty crazy.
Light heavyweight's been screwed up since John Jones messed that thing up a couple of years ago. Did I say Bones Jones? He's number 2 right now in the pound for pound rankings. When do we knock him out of the pound for pound rankings? When do we pretend like he's not a UFC fighter, take his belt, and then say, once you have another fight on the books, you can come back and be in all these kind of conversations? But I mean, it feels like John Jones is like a figment of our imagination.
Yeah, and look, just to get to this, because, you know, Islam being number 1 now, I just think that talking to Randy Brown about this last week, the rankings activity should matter in some of this stuff. Like, you don't always get to keep it. Yeah, John maybe gets to have special exceptions because he is the GOAT, but I can't really get with him lashing out at Islam being number 1 overall pound for pound. First of all, who cares, right? Like, we're talking about, like, no, you make no less money. He just did the coolest thing, pound for pound. He just beat Dustin Poirier, an all-timer. It's okay, John, that he's pound for pound. If you go and beat Stipe, I'm sure he's going to leapfrog back up into the rankings, and he'll be back number 1. But excuse us for wanting you to fight more than once every 18 months. You're still the best. Nobody's saying that Islam's passed you in history. Just currently, you know, we're just saying for right now, Islam gets the title. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, that's right. Islam is your number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. That's it for the show today. Thank you to my producer, Jake Noecker, for my co-host, Brendan Tobin, for Xander Zayas. We had on Jim Rodriguez as well. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. We'll talk to you next Saturday night right here on the BetQL Network. Good night.